everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Pod. My name is Zill. I'm very excited to have you all here with us today. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, K-libra. How are you doing, K-libra?
I'm doing okay. Wish I slept a little better, but I'll make it.
You'll make it?
Also have the world's #1 investigator, the Frog Detective, with me today.
The Frog? I've never heard of him. Who is he?
The Frog Detective is, as I said, the world's #1 investigator for crime solving. Please look into the Frog Detective and all his wonderful adventures on Steam. And no, this is not. I was not paid to say this. It's just, It's just great. It's fucking.
Is the Frog Detective sliding you money under the table?
Well, they wouldn't let me say fucking, I think.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah,
it's
fucking buy it. It's three games. Each of them are like an hour each. They're all like $5 or less, and they're so heartwarming. And I love the Frog Detective so much. And now is with us.
Okay.
And we're going to be discussing some kind of crimes today.
We are. But I have to ask before we get to that. Who certified him as the #1 investigator? Is there like a certification body that like delegates like who gets to be like the best investigator?
Well, he's got his own agency, and the commissioner. What was the commissioner or chief? Well, basically the guy who calls him and is in charge of
okay. And
order.
he says
we need you, Frog Detective.
Okay.
We need your help.
That seems like a very unbiased source of...
And with his trust... Well, actually, the bias is that Lobster Cop is supposed to be the #1 detective. Now, you see, that's another reason to find out what is going on with the Frog Detective. Why is he the best one if Lobster Cop is the best one?
Riveting storytelling.
Actually, yes.
Yes.
Go play Frog Detective.
Okay.
All 3 of them.
Now. And if you would like to enable further purchases of Frog Detective, you can support us over at patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod, where you can hear us talk about Frog Detective or ask us questions, or alternatively just hear us make fools out of ourselves, because sometimes we drop little bonus clips from episodes, like us singing songs. So it's all very, very much supported, appreciated. As always, everyone who is on the Patreon is in my will, so if you want a piece of my fortune, that's one way to get it. Although again, hopefully I'm not perishing anytime soon. So
and just to let you know, despite the potential crimes that we will be discussing today, Frog Detective I will consult, but Frog Detective will not be on duty. Frog Detective is going to take some time off.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, instead of Frog Detective, we have a very illustrious guest, often friend of the podcast, also guest host at times, Toledo.
Hi, I am neither a detective nor a frog.
That is true, but you are a panther, so we'll take it.
That's completely okay. I don't need everything to be a frog around me, despite what some people might think.
well, we have a panther and a snep here today to accompany you. So
I'm supposed to be a mix of both feline and
there
frog
you go.
anyway.
There
so
you
it
go.
Works.
So we're like, would that be like 83% feline today?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So we've brought you here today, Toledo, because I can't think of a better person to talk about the subject at hand. We're going to be talking about AI, I guess, products and how they are affecting the medium of photomanipulation. And I want to just disclaim at the start that when we talk about this kind of stuff, we are talking about quote-unquote AI art, but we don't want to call it that because it's not really art. So instead of AI art, we're talking about AI products. Instead of AI artists, we're talking about AI prompters or AI producers. Yep. And I think that delineation is important because when we talk about art is very much a deliberative, creative process, and that is not what these programs are engaging in at the end of the day.
Yeah, they also don't communicate anything. No matter how frivolous you think a piece of art may be, a drawing, there is the intent to communicate something. And these systems do not do that. It cannot be art.
Yeah. So, I kind of wanted to structure this conversation a little bit first by talking about how AI is affecting artists like myself in Toledo, and how our emotional responses a little bit, I guess. And as kind of like a boilerplate note, like there's been a lot of discourse around AI with intellectual property theft and all of that good stuff. And we all agree with those points, but that's not what the point of this episode is. Like we've actually already talked about that in a prior episode. So this is more about, how is this actually emotionally affecting artists, and talking a little bit about its effects and such, and not to relitigate all of the stuff about intellectual property theft because it's been talked to death.
There is one other thing I'd like both of you to do, by the way, and that is explain what you mean by both you and Toledo being a certain kind of artist, because people may not know if the first time they're listening or hearing you for any reason.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe Toledo, I don't know if you'd like to go on first and kind of talk a little bit about your art process and how you classify it.
Yeah. So this would be photomanipulation. It's always kind of been a marginal thing in the furry space. I remember encountering it back in the day on worth1000.com. Basically, it's using programs like Adobe Photoshop or things like it, and taking a base of photographs and changing those photographs in ways that, changing those photographs. What we typically do in, the furry and transformation zone is change those photographs so that they represent anthropomorphic characters or characters going through a process of like bodily change. And there are various ways of doing that. Some might be splicing partial images of animals onto images of people. The method I use is reshaping the figure that's in the original photo and then using tools to recolor and kind of add texture to make it look realistic. But all of that is counted as photo manipulation. Technically it goes back before digital art. People could photo manipulate by messing with photo negatives and all of that stuff. It was just a little more complicated in ways.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of putting it. And I will just say that a lot of my own methods are actually, my art process is pretty similarly aligned with how Toledo does a lot of his stuff. I actually, in my opinion, leveled up some of my art because of the tutorials that Toledo shared online. So I'd be remiss not to mention that because Toledo is one of the best. He might be too humble to say that, but that's my opinion. But anyways,
to be clear, you also make photo manipulation.
Yeah, in a similar way. It's about taking an original image and remolding it. It's less about taking external stock and implementing that, because that is a way you can do it. And we've had folks on the podcast before who do that method. That's not really the method that Toledo and I tend towards, though. Like mine is definitely similarly like molding the image and reshaping what's already there and creating brand new things out of things that were in the image. Like, for example, taking the skin that's showing on an arm and turning that into the base for the tail, for example. That would be similar. So
yeah. Grafting certain parts onto other parts and making something else. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Very TFE.
Think very hard about that, everybody.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that it was established what exactly it is that you both make, because in terms of AI product, AI images, this is the kind of thing that I think a lot of people find to be a really nice shortcut to making something really good, which is funny because I think that a lot of people view photo manipulation as a shortcut of its own, but I think that there's a group of people who look at both of these things and they think, oh, now I can do all of that with none of the work. And you mentioned the emotional impact. I think it's good for people to understand that how artists are feeling about what they're doing matters a lot. And I think that there's enough empathetic people that they will see an artist who's struggling and think, oh, that sucks, and maybe they'll try to help a little bit in some way. But it can be, I think it can still be really understated what happens to people when they just lose the will to keep on going or sharing, which I think some of you would be really upset to know if some of your favorite artists just kept making work but just stopped sharing them because, well, why the fuck would you? Nobody cares. Yeah. And that feeling really can do a lot of damage.
Actually, if I might riff off of one of the things you said, about people's opinions about photo manipulations. I remember back in 2011 when I finally got around to applying for a gallery on transfer. I had to go several rounds because some of the adjudicators didn't regard photo manipulations as art. And part of that was because so many of the things that they saw were just like, I'm going to cut a dog head out of this picture and put it on a human body over here, and voila. This is a photo manipulation. It is a photo manipulation, not necessarily a good one, but it could be a beginner one. In any case,
exactly.
I faced that with photo manipulation. But still, there is a big difference between that and AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to also piggyback on that in the sense that I've encountered that so many times, and it's funny to me because there was a bit of a, I don't want to say that its heyday is past, but I guess I'm going to say its heyday is past in the sense of like there was a particular like focus and almost glut of that kind of a content, I'd say in like the late aughts, particularly I'd say between like 2004 and like 2009. And as things have kind of progressed, like in going into the early 10s and late 10s, like there's been a pretty steep drop off in terms of the people who are actually still producing content in that medium that really stands in contrast to how things were before. And there's probably a variety of different factors that play into that. But I do think one of them is this kind of like attitude towards it that, you know, you mentioned encountering from folks at transfer, for example, of like, this is kind of a lesser art form. And also just with the advent of a lot of, you know, issues with like copyright of images and stuff like that, especially if you were doing, you know, the kind of taking from other images and using it in one, it made it much more difficult to not only make it, but also like make it and be able to post it and keep it up, because some of these things would get taken down. And I even remember, you know, to use an example, like on Fur Affinity, I remember one time I did use, very much unlike me, but I did use an image that was free to use stock of someone else, and it still got taken down, even though I had done all the right things. Fur Affinity said, well, we don't think you did, so whatever. So I guess it's just going into this, I guess is what I'm trying to say, going into AI product stuff, which we're going to talk about, photo manipulation was already facing some unique challenges, and then the AI came and magnified it times like 1,000. So
actually, it might. I actually had a thought. It's like it might be. I could go into why photo manipulations appealed to me in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
I really, really liked photorealistic stuff. And to be honest, like photo manipulation is an easier way of getting a photorealistic end product than is generating everything from scratch. And I think that might be why people devalue it. It in a similar way as people who feel like a hard round brush is the only one that you should use in a digital art program, that using anything else is cheating. And so it was that for me. I could get something that I was really pleased with without having to construct an entire world and backgrounds and so forth. However, there is work that goes into it that perspective, or just viewing it as easier, does not acknowledge. You have to compose the original picture. You have to be able to composite things in a way that looks like it actually exists in space with volume and weight. And that's not easy. And many of these things have to be premeditated before you even take the pictures. You have to light it correctly. When you photo manipulate elements of the image, you have to make sure that they match in terms of lighting, in terms of focus and grain and detail level, all the rest of what's in the image. So it requires an understanding of shape, of volume, of anatomy, of lighting, of relative color, all of those things that go into creating an image from scratch also apply in the photo manipulation space. Like, it is easier than creating something from scratch, but it doesn't mean that there's like no thought or skill that goes into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much of the skill that goes into doing a good photo manipulation is in the setup and like the pre-planning phase that you will just never see. And that's not to say that that's not true as well in like other kinds of art, but I feel like when it comes to photo manipulation, it's also uniquely so in a way that it just doesn't necessarily come across.
I think while listening to both of you, the thing that came to mind to me was movies. Making movies, movie posters, everything like that, promotional images. That's a lot of photo manipulation.
Yeah, it is.
It is, even though you may not consider it as such, but it there's a lot of that. And pretty much it's the version of this stuff doesn't move versus everything else that does.
Yeah.
The fucking Star Wars prequels are a notorious example of that. Almost nobody walked in any real sets.
Yes.
And
this is very true.
And what else is that but photo manipulation? It's video manipulation. It's the same thing except everything moves.
Yeah, it's similar principles.
And even though you could argue, oh, they didn't make real sets, it wasn't real work or whatever, there's a bunch of people who had to go through painstaking hours and hours and hours to make that look even decent. Disregarding any other criticisms you have about the movie, you can't just paste that over. You just can't paste somebody walking in that stuff.
Yeah.
You can't do it. So, or even better example, if you want to go to something that you can actually enjoy, the Shape of Water. The Shape of Water had a lot of CGI touch-ups that I was not aware of until I was shown after I'd seen the movie, and on location, the film spots that were used were. They had like certain things added or removed, but otherwise they filmed at a certain time of day or night, things like that, and that stuff helped make the movie what it is. Never mind anything else like the creature or special effects. Those things factor into the stuff that both of you already endeavor doing.
Yeah.
And there is no easy path to that, because if you didn't know there was a more CGI in Shape of Water than you thought, well then that's how good it is, and that's how good it can be, and not just anybody can go ahead and do it. It's not matte painting, but holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many. And the other thing I'll also mention when it comes to photo manipulation is, in some ways, there are parts of techniques, at least in terms of how I think we create our images, that you can make analogous to digital art in terms of like actually like painting on fur with brushes or like things like that. And I think that a lot of that also doesn't necessarily come across because the almost stereotype in a lot of people's minds when it comes to photo manipulation is like, okay, you take the cat head and you put the cat head on the person's body. And it's like, well, that can be, but that's not even close to the breadth of what photo manipulation can be and like the creation process that goes into it.
Never mind what it can be, but what you both aim for, right?
Yeah.
Well, and to talk about what I don't use this term pejoratively, but photo bashing, mashing in the photos, like the people who are really good at that do some fantastic work. They
Really
have to like make the shapes of the human face match with the snouts. They have to make sure that they find images of the animals that match with the angle, that match with the lighting, or they need to know how to construct it that way. Like that takes a lot of work and knowledge that cannot just be like that cannot be replicated by a copy and paste function in Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. And so, when we talk about AI products and how that's starting to affect the medium, I remember the first time that I realized that this was going to be a thing, basically, where like people were going to use AI to specifically try and get like transformation and furry realism styled images. And I remember at first, this is kind of a silly thought, but when I was looking at it and stuff, I was kind of thinking, okay, this is concerning, but on the other hand, they can't do hands. So like, how good is this ever really going to be? And and full disclosure, one of the thoughts I had in my head was like, well, I don't think they're ever going to really nail like proper looking genitals, so I'll probably be okay. And that ended up not being the case. But I remember just like seeing it kind of coming in from the horizon and going, okay, I'm a little bit concerned, but it's probably going to take a long time for it to like really get much better, right? And I just remember seeing it develop rather quickly, at least initially. I think it's pretty much stagnated now, but it developed really quickly at first. And the other thing that noticed me was that stood out to me was the audience reaction to it, because at the beginning everyone was very like, oh yeah, AI art is bad. And to be clear, I think, or sorry, product. To be clear, a lot of people are still saying that, and that's good. But what I've noticed is that there are people who will use AI products and post them and not disclose that they are AI made images, and they get like hundreds of likes. And nobody seems to realize that it's AI products. And that was just so perturbing to me, because as an artist, I could clearly see that it was.
Right.
But it's like, okay, I can see it, but I'm standing around in a room with like however many people, and all these other people aren't seeing it. So I guess it's like accomplished its goal to some degree.
Right.
And that was just like, it was so demoralizing the first time I saw it, particularly the first time I saw it where someone was using it and not disclosing it was AI art, because I would have people, and maybe you can chime in on this, I would have people who would send me the image and be like, oh, have you seen this photo manip? It's really good. And I'd have to be there and be like, that's not a photo manip, that's AI art. And they'd be like, really? And I'm like, yeah, look, this. And they're like, oh. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, to be honest, like, I was kind of outside of this until I saw one of your tweets about it and how you were feeling demoralized by seeing the rise of this. And I was like, oh dear. And then a couple weeks later, I saw in my recommendations on DeviantArt stuff that was like, that looks pretty good in a thumbnail. And then I opened it up and I'm like, oh, this is AI. This is what Zilla's talking about. Where it's like, I could see the little things that were wrong. The eyes were not right. The shadows didn't match the bodies. Like, the clothing blended with the skin and was entirely nonsensical in design. I was like, but a lot of it was there. There were photorealistic textures. There were pretty decent shapes of bodies. There were like backgrounds that might not make much sense upon like closer scrutiny, but were passable when you were looking at the subject front and center. I was just like, oh yeah, like this is, you can have someone who's basically just like strategically rolling dice in front of a computer until it produces something that they are like okay satisfied with, that would take skill in composition and all of that otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It shocked me. I was just like, oh, okay. Got it. I understand now.
I'm curious, how did it, so you said obviously you were shocked. Once you like had a chance to like explore it a little bit more, how did it make you feel about your own like creation process?
To be honest, there was enough difference that I didn't really necessarily feel threatened, or feel that kind of discouragement. But I was taking a special note of things that the AI could do easily that I could not.
Yeah.
So one of the big things is textures. I have means of like skin textures are pretty easy because humans have them.
Yeah.
Fur textures are slightly easier because there are tools that have been developed to help with creating that, and I've honed them to make them look realistic. But one thing I've never really been able to do is things like wrinkled skin or knobbly skin or scaly skin. If you look through my gallery, there aren't many dragons or dinosaurs or or reptiles, and that's because I know that I would not be able to reliably replicate those textures and I don't want to go through the process to like graft them on from, open source images. But these AI ones, working from an extensive library of these textures that they can just mix and match from, can just like throw, oh yes, there will be scales on this iguana person. There will be, feathers on this one. They can replicate these things that are very hard simply because they can steal from a bunch of places. And that, I would like to do those things myself. They're limitations that I have. And it's, it's sad that the way that it's getting done is through a morally questionable tool that does not require very much artistic input.
Actually, it requires a lot, which is why they launder all this art in the first place.
Oh, well, I mean, yes. It requires a lot to scrape off of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You look, the only reason they can pose so well is because they're working from a library of, like, hundreds of thousands of, like, semi-naked human photos. It's like, oh, yeah, you can do muscles when you're just copying them from hundreds of thousands and just... again, it's rolling the dice. It's like, oh, what is next to this? What is next to a pectoral? Could it be another pectoral? Like, probability says yes.
Yeah.
And it's that's all I can see whenever I've seen these images. There was a server that I was in for a little while where somebody would take images and touch them up with their own painting, and I saw that and I thought, and I asked them, "Did you make that?" And they're like, "Oh no, that's AI." I'm like, but I touched it up and I asked to see an example, like, well, show me what it was like before you touched it. And sad thing to me was that it wasn't supposed to be photo manipulation. It was supposed to be another realistic art piece, but the adjustments that were made by the person showed that they have really good skills in art.
Yeah.
Because what they add to it, I'm like, wow, that's much better. But you are held back by this so much, and there's so many other things that you could fix, and there's a lot of other things that you could have done with this to make it better.
Yeah.
But you're not, because you're letting this thing do most of the heavy lifting, and you're shortchanging yourself, and everybody gets shortchanged. But a lot of people be like, "Oh," and all I think of is like, "That's it? This is it?" You could have done so many other things, and this is all you can do. And a lot of the errors get left in because you would have to do so much more work to repair what it does.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is
Well, and it also just really, it works better with incredibly common subjects.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where the AI has more dice to roll. So like canine or feline, it does better. My DM for a long-running Dungeons and Dragons campaign was messing around with Midjourney trying to create portraits of our party. And my character in that campaign is an anthropomorphic Gemsbok. And he was absolutely unable to get it to work. They were constantly giving him spiral horns like a kudu, or even just like splayed out ones like a goat. They had no idea what to do with that because a Gemsbok is a much more uncommon thing. Again, there's no mind behind it. Like my DM, no matter how many prompts he could do, could not get it right because it's not a thinking thing. It's not intelligent.
Yeah.
It doesn't understand it doesn't know what anything is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It will see a thing and relate those things to other things, but it doesn't know what each thing is, why it's there, what it's doing, what it's for.
It doesn't have that deep understanding.
Because it's not actual AI. If you, I think another YouTuber, Kyle Hill, who discussed the whole AI art thing, arts in throbbing quotations, and said this AI stuff is actually not artificial intelligence as we know it, and explains more clearly what this is and how really it's kind of a misnomer to call it artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's machine learning.
Oh, absolutely. One thing I want to touch on as well, I know that you're not necessarily taking on commissions in any way right now, but as someone who is still doing commissioned art, it was really upsetting to see people starting to use this in a way where they are also charging for it. There are a number of people who use AI products as a way to make some money off of people. And, I, as one person, cannot compete with a machine and when it comes to like creation, output, or price. I remember, when I was tweeting, when you were mentioning, you saw my tweets about it. I definitely had people who reached out to me who were like, hey, I really don't want you to like give up on making art because I really like it. And then those same people would go and commission AI products. And I'm not trying to like call anyone out, like, everyone has their own decisions and whatever. But part of the appeal was that, the AI prompter was charging like $15. And
you.
like, if I'm doing like a full body piece, I'm not working on something for below $65. So,
Absolutely.
I can't compete from a price perspective. Obviously, my stuff is going to take a lot longer. And, anyways, I just, when I think about the whole like commission world, it is very demoralizing. And it also illuminated to me a little bit about my own like reasoning behind doing commissions, which was kind of a good thing, but it was like very much like an accident because it kind of reminded me like I'm not doing photo manipulation commissions to like get by. If I was, I'd be in a very different position. But I do it primarily to ironically finance getting commissions for myself. And so it's kind of ended up where I'm in this like really weird feedback loop, and like all of my like motivation for making the art has become a little bit screwy too. And so this did kind of like highlight that to me, and I think I still need to do a little bit more thinking as to like how to change the like feedback reward incentive system on my end. But I guess I was curious, I know again you're not doing commissions right now, but I'm wondering if you were theoretically, I wonder how you would feel about how this is kind of potentially encroaching on that.
Yeah, and I will also admit that my commissions have never been a primary source of income. In fact, TF Photomanipulation is probably such a small like slice that no one has used it for their primary income.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that sets us apart from a lot of people whose livelihoods are being threatened by corporate executives who would just want to use it. I would, if I were doing it, I would have to make it clear, and maybe it would just be like strengthening some language in my terms of service where it's like, if you're going to commission me, you're going to commission me for things that I can do well, and that I can do well in a price range that you will accept. And in the past, I've turned people down. It's like, no, sorry, I can't do a dragon. No, I'm not going to do a like rubber textured cartoon fox because that would look terrible in my style. Or like a realistic My Little Pony. It's like,
I remember that one.
oh, that one was a request that someone did. And I did it as a parody. But I have gotten requests for other ones. I'm like, no, that would look terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like you understand what you are getting. You are getting like the consulting time with me to make sure that it's right. Like my commentary on whatever like images you send me, like the collaboration of selecting an image, the work that goes into crafting it, and the ability to edit things as we go. Like that is what you are getting. You are getting me as a person and my time, not merely a finished image. I think it would be frustrating if my stuff were compared to it. Like if someone said, hey, this looks like your stuff. Because I know what's gone into it.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a lot more. Like I often with my photo manipulations, I even start out with like thumbnail sketches. So it's
Yeah.
I know where I'm going to put the camera. I know where the lights are going to be. I know how I'm going to pose. I'm not, a thousand digital dice rolling.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I probably just frustrated. Like, please don't conflate
Yeah.
me with this.
Yeah.
I think that might be my primary reaction.
Mhm.
It's funny that you mentioned being compared to it because I forget exactly what recent I think it was like archaeological discovery, but it involved like women in history and stuff like that. But an artist had painted their interpretation of it, and people were saying, "Oh, you're using AI art. That really looks like AI art." It's like, no, a person made that. This is what they're stealing from all the time. That you think that could not have been made by a person.
Yeah.
You fucking Philistine.
Well, yeah, and that's also the thing. Like, so much of AI art has like the same style. So if you're doing something that even looks remotely like that style, even from like beforehand, people are going to start making that comparison. It's like, well, wait, I was here doing this style first, and that program is scraping my content, and now you're telling me that my art looks like it came out of an AI when it's the other way around. Like,
Yeah.
my art's going into an AI.
Where the fuck do you people think that shit came
Yeah.
from? You people actually don't fucking get it, do you?
Well-
God damn.
Well, the thing I also think about sometimes is that, when it comes to these AI products, there are definitely ones that I've seen that looked interesting, and I was like, oh, that's curious. And then I find myself caught in this, like, almost like loop of, like, shame, if that makes sense, because I'm like, here I am, I have seen an image that I actually was, like, kind of okay with, and I realize it's AI art, and I know, like, this goes against my moral beliefs, and I don't like this from an intellectual level, and it's also, endangering the art that I'm making, but also, like, on another level, I can feel like, I do find something interesting in that, and it just adds this, like, whole moral conflicting.
It's not that complicated. I will simplify it for you.
Okay.
I will simplify it for everybody listening. Pretty thing look pretty, we like pretty thing. We see thing we think pretty, we like. Okay? That's it. How you are going to go out of your way to propagate it, to use it, to abuse it, all that stuff. That's where your choice and the weight of your choices can start to mount. But if you're looking at it and you're like, wow, that looks good. See, my thought process whenever I see anything that looks remotely good as a fucking result of this bullshit is, wow, that looks pretty good. It's a fucking shame it came out of that. That's it. That's where it begins and ends. And just like I mentioned before, that one artist who was touching up stuff, I'm like, wow, that looks pretty good. A shame you didn't just paint the whole fucking thing yourself. Obviously you can. And you're wasting your time. You may not think so. Well, I didn't have to spend, 30 hours, doing the background and tweaking it. Yeah, okay. Well, what did you really make in the end? What is the satisfaction you really got? If you are an artist and you start using that as a way to, like, speed up your process for anything you do, you are shortchanging yourself, because the point of art is lost in letting it do all that work for you. Shit, you mentioned photo bashers earlier, Toledo, and I've seen some really cool stuff come out of photo bashing, but that's because somebody has to, like, apply their imagination to it and then construct something out of it. It's not the fucking same.
Yeah.
All right?
It's very soulless.
Another thing, too, is that the AI cannot create things for which it doesn't have a point of reference. Like, if it can't do a Gemsbach, it can't do a photorealistic thing that no one has ever imagined. It has no creativity. But I'll go back to Zill's point. I had that same thing when I was looking through this gallery. I was like, this is AI art. This person is just pumping things out, but still it's appealing. Like, transformation is cool. Like, these, like, scratch an itch for me. And it just emphasizes to me something that we all have to recognize. Pretty thing look pretty. Our tastes are not necessarily, bound to our senses of morality. And I think
There's-
that's something that
Yeah.
extends outside of this.
Yes.
In
It's with
conversations about
anything.
attraction and paraphilia and what have you, like that side of someone's life isn't necessarily any like reflection on how they live as a person.
Yeah.
And what their
Look, it's
moral
like-
values are.
Yeah, it's like if you laugh if you laugh at a joke and then you find out that it was a joke by Louis C.K. What the fuck?
Yeah, yeah.
That didn't mean you were okay with
what he did and stuff. Yeah,
That's-
absolutely.
And if after the fact you're like, well, I don't want to laugh about this stuff anymore from this guy because of what he did, then fine, good. That's
that's a good thing.
That's you applying your ethics to whatever. But by the same point, even though any of us would be like, well, that looks pretty cool, right? None of us would ever post it and say, look, this is cool. Or if we did, we would say something. I think I've done it with like maybe I can count on one hand how many images I've ever posted in my own server where I would say, I saw this. It's a fucking shame it's not real.
Yeah.
Because it's not real. Conceptually speaking, I don't consider it real.
Yeah. And that's one of the most important things to me. You know, if someone is going to make the decision to repost something like that, which I don't, but if someone was to make that decision, what I would care about most is disclosure. Because when you tell someone, hey, this came out of an AI product, that clarifies things for them, and they're able to make a fulsome decision as to whether or not they truly like the pretty thing or not. Or at the very least, I want to like indulge in it or whatever. Whereas when you kind of try to Trojan horse it into the art community, then, you know, it's more difficult for people who don't have that kind of artistic eye to make that kind of a choice because they don't know. I've seen so many people who aren't like strictly artists themselves be kind of duped, I guess, in a way. And it just feels so like frustrating. Not only I'm sure they feel frustrated too, but also frustrating for me because it's like you recognize that the pretty things that are being spat out from the machine have gone to a point at least where some people in the general public can't notice a difference, and that does feel pretty garbage.
And
so
the other like looking at this person's gallery, the other kind of reflection it caused for me about my own art was how much I was doing it for others' momentary consumption. The thing that AI enables is rapid production of things and thus proliferation. And the viewer can just like take them in. And I'll admit, like, one of the reasons I started posting less TF stuff, even if I do it for myself and friends, was because I was kind of, and I don't judge the people who are doing this, kind of being treated a bit like that, as kind of like the dispenser of content. And that'll happen with anyone who develops paraphilic relationships, no matter how small a creator they are.
You
But
mean parasocial? Or paraphilic?
sorry, parasocial. You are absolutely right. Parasocial relationships.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, paraphilic relationships.
Yeah.
There's some of those too.
There are
Of
some
course.
of those. And, well, you know, if you're working on TF stuff, that's the form the parasocial relationships will take on.
Often take,
Of course, all art is consumed in ways. Like, it is viewed, it is handled, it is talked about. But I hope that the things I create will perhaps linger and provoke thought, as opposed to just be there and then immediately displaced by the next thing.
Yeah.
Even though you don't judge those people, I sometimes do. Seriously, there was I haven't said it enough on this podcast, but that's one of the reasons I didn't like going on transfer. One of the common comments that I would get would be like, "Will this be a sequence?
Yeah.
Like this wasn't enough for you."
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks. Which which leans into why this kind of AI image generation shit popped off so hard, because now you can just get it. You can just get it. You don't even have to ask. You don't have to ask anybody if they're going to do it. You don't have to cajole someone into doing it. And that yes, there are a group of people that simply do not fucking care about what you do, or or are not grateful for what you decided to share. And that shit has made me angry for a really long time, because I struggled to get something when I felt pleased about something. To see somebody ask, is there going to be more, as their first and only reaction, made me feel at times like I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So fuck you people anyway.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
It fosters this. I don't want to say it's an entitlement, but
It
like
is.
there is an element of entitlement, you know, and it's like, you know, artists are people, unlike AI programs, and you know, we all have a very complex relationship with our art, and a lot of what can drive our art sometimes, as both of you have kind of mentioned, is the reaction to it. And you know, art doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is affected by our own personal states of mind. It's affected by the world around us. It's affected by the people who react to our pieces. It's affected by the community writ large, and all of these other factors. And when art is being created and that kind of expectation is being put on you as an artist from the audience that is consuming it, it poisons the well of your relationship with your own art. It can make it feel very disconnected and disconcerting. It's why, like, you know, like I said before, like I was thinking about maybe just stopping completely, because I felt like I was in a position now where I couldn't, and I mean, to be honest, I'm still experiencing this, but like I can't sit down right now and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna make a photo manipulation just because I want to. For me, I haven't done that in like many months, and that is frustrating for me to think about, because you know, it's something that I deeply love. It's a medium that I've worked in for more than a decade, and I feel like my relationship with it has been poisoned in a way because of AI products. And you know, I think that extends to kind of both of what you're saying in terms of like, you know, expectations from an audience, and like, are you going to do more, or are you going to do more of this? And it's like, you know, that's not the direction I want to go in. And if you keep insisting I go in that direction, maybe I'm going to go in a completely different direction, you know? And that's how we, as we've talked about in other episodes on this podcast, that's how you lose artists in the community. When you have that kind of entitlement and also not caring for the person behind the art that's being created. Because so much of having a healthy artist community comes from really being thoughtful about the artists and like treating them in a very humane and, I guess, fair way. And I'm not saying, you know, put artists on pedestals, because that comes with its own like degrees of messed up. But at the very least, remember that artists are people, and think about that when you are putting down, you know, a comment to a piece or something like that. I just feel like that thoughtfulness would go a long way, and it would help to, in my opinion, at least help bolster artists who are grappling with this kind of like affront of AI products that are being deluged onto all of us now. Because it can be quite hard to keep up the motivation when you just see, you know, all of these images being spit out from a computer, and it's like, okay, well, then what am I doing this for, right?
Yeah.
Toledo, does that affect your output for your own art so far?
So, I think I went through a bit of this reckoning years ago, and not about AI, but about like how people viewed my art. And I think what inspired it was kind of a growing ennui or dissatisfaction with relationships, but also the discovery of something that I enjoyed more. At about the same time I was kind of winding down my transformation stuff, I discovered the Furry Basketball Association. It's a shared world building, collective storytelling project that's been going on since 2009. It's still going on if you're interested. I'm not very involved in it anymore. But it was really cool to be embedded in a group of people who were writing, creating characters, creating stories, creating art, all about this thing that they had originated and lived only in the heads of like a couple dozen people. And I found myself actually being able to write stories for the first times in years and do art about those stories that I cared about. And they were things that were just like bizarre. It's like, okay, toucan basketball player from Argentina, like in the United States. Like, this is weird.
But it's original. It comes from a person.
Yes. And I think what has helped me deal with this is just finding out the weird things that I really want to see in the world, that are completely unreplicable by AI stuff. And for me, I will admit, this hasn't really come in the context of TF photo manipulations. I haven't done those much. In an earlier episode, I talked about wrist pains and various other things that have prevented photo manipulation. Though I did do a bulldog recently. But the current project I'm working on is, and who knows how this will turn out or when it will be completed, but I'm working on writing what I hope will be a visual novel, but it's like semi-autobiographical, like deer on a Mormon mission in furry Argentina, like with all of these weird themes. And I take great comfort in the fact that it is something that ChatGPT could never create.
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT can't do furries. It would have no idea what to do with any of the things that I talk about. And it probably hasn't even heard of northern Argentina. It would try to toss in Buenos Aires because, you know, you throw a dart
That's the one place.
You throw a dart at discourse of Argentina and you get Buenos Aires 99% of the time. So, like, I think that might be the way I've dealt with it. It's just, like, find my very particular joys and put them out there. And also, I think, kind of divorcing I guess for me, I haven't used kind of commissions to, or photo manipulation commissions to supplement, you know, my activities for a while. So like, and I think that has helped me as a hobbyist, where I can sit down and if I have the will, I can just toss something out, and I don't have to worry if it doesn't get traction. If it pleases a couple friends who like me as a person and who like my art for its quality, that is fulfilling.
And anybody hearing Toledo mention these, this is a really healthy relationship to have with your art. But don't expect artists to just pick up that kind of baseline of thought, because there's plenty that don't. And
it takes a long time to get, I think, to that position too.
It's taken
I think,
me
like,
years.
because you've had, like the fact that you kind of, because of other things, were able to kind of get on this line of thinking and like develop it over time, I think is what's led to its health. And it's like so many people are just starting to understand it, you know.
And this is for anybody who's still listening who thinks like, oh well, you know, what's your problem with AI if that's your relationship with art? Well, dickhead, it's more complicated than that, because we've been talking about exactly what it does and the and you know how these things stack together. It's not just a matter of, you know, how many people like it and how many people will click the button that tells you that they like it. It's a matter of how people see us when we're sharing these things. And this goes all the way back to when we mentioned, you know, how certain people leave comments, or, you know, or if they seem to expect more or be entitled. So yeah, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, just do what he's doing, it's not that big a deal, you haven't really been paying attention. Please pay the fuck attention. But if you were looking to argue, you're not gonna win this argument.
Yeah.
I'm really hostile about this because anybody who seems to really like this stuff really tries to get other people to believe that there isn't anything wrong with what's going on.
That's such a weird thing to me. Like, we all have the same information, theoretically, about AI products, and I just don't understand the need for some people to justify it, and incessantly so, and sometimes even try to moralize it. And that's the one that I always find super galling, because it's like, you're literally going to sit here and tell me that no, actually the AI products that you are seeing that are making you feel so shitty about your art, it's actually ethical and you just need to get over it. I'm like, excuse me?
Or
do you know who you're talking to?
Or even evangelize. This is the next step.
Yeah, it's just, I'm like, what? Why do you feel the need to do this? I understand, we as humans, we like to engage in things that we feel are correct. That's just a natural thing. And if there's any I guess suggestion that it's not, certain people might be like, well, no, actually I'm going to construct this worldview that will help justify it. But then the need to also say that to other people, I recognize it's a dynamic of again, human beings, but some of these people, I'm just like, if you just sat there and you just kept doing what you were doing and you didn't say anything, you might not be getting the pushback you're getting now. But because you feel the need to push that narrative that you've developed in your head, you're making it worse for everyone. There's no other way to slice it. I don't understand why people do that.
Yeah. So that's why I'm openly hostile about this, because the people that I've seen try to push it are total fucking pieces of shit about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I can accept the whole being total piece of shit if you decide to stop. You can decide to stop at any time.
Yeah. The best time to do that was yesterday. The next best time was now.
Yeah. So do it now, and then you can have a proper discussion. But don't be surprised that me and people like me are really fucking pissed off about it when we think about it enough.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this for about 40-something minutes maybe. And the more I think about it, the angrier I get.
Yeah.
Usually okay, my relationship with it is detached from both of these people, because I am not a photo manipulator. I've done paint overs.
Yes.
And yeah, that's a completely different fucking thing.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. God, it's a challenge. It's a very rewarding challenge. But yeah, just taking a photo and being like, all right, I'm going to make something really different out of this. So I don't have the same stakes that they do in terms of that kind of photorealism. Already there's a bunch of people who don't understand, as I mentioned, that AI images and shit like that, that looks like an AI image. No, dickhead, that's what it learned from.
Yeah.
The things that I make, people already really want to see. Okay, I have a Pixiv account, and on Pixiv, one of the things that will show up are these really cool images. There's a lot of incredibly good art on Pixiv, and I've been fooled a couple of times with these cyber mecha musume, robot girl, for those who don't know the term, pictures, and then I'm just like, oh, and I'll leave a favorite, and then I was like, well, I want to find more of these, because what if it's from a series or something?
Yeah.
And then I see the fucking tag AI generated, and I'm like, God fucking damn it. And so there's room for everybody to suffer from this, at least eventually. It already knows. Yeah. It already know. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've seen ones that pretty clearly replicate anime or manga styles.
Yeah.
Or if you look on YouTube, you'll get these lo-fi beats for werewolves only, or for foxes only, and all of the thumbnails are AI. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine.
That's a great point, though.
Yeah, exactly. This is the kind of shit I'm talking about. It's everywhere. And to bring it back to the point of this, the reason photo manipulation is the topic here, because it is the idea of you taking a photo of yourself, putting it into a program, and getting this result very quickly is a novel idea. It is a novel idea. It is a very fun toy. Do not conflate it with art. Do not conflate it as a replacement for artists or what they do. Oh, but it looks so much better. Oh, but it looks so realistic. Oh my god. I can tear into some of these fucking things.
Well, so I want to touch on that actually too, because, you know, I think sometimes about how AI is going to like change photo manipulation or potentially end it. And I'm very pessimistic on this topic right now because, you know, I have a I feel very bad about the whole thing. But one of the things I've noticed is that there are artists who clearly, and I'm calling them artists because they clearly have some kind of an artistic skill. And what they have started to do with like photo manipulation is they will take parts of the AI products and they will put it onto an image and like blend it together and make it kind of look like, oh, I like manipped this, and then just like share it out there. And that's different from like the wholesale completely computer generated one. Because there is that, you know, you do have like the original image and then you've tacked on certain things, probably because you put the image into a program and then have erased all the bad stuff basically. And I've been seeing it from like more than one person, and I'm just kind of sitting here going, is this what photo manipulation is going to become? And that is so depressing to me.
Just another shortcut.
Well, this
is just another shortcut. This is to the fucking root of people thinking photo manipulation is easier than drawing because I don't have to draw the thing, so I'll just put it on the picture.
Yeah.
And now they're just doing another version of that.
But that's the kind that fools people the most, and that's what bothers me.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell all of you this, and it's going to be really fucking mean, but it's going to just look like bad photo manipulation in the fucking first place. All right? It's going to... Okay.
Zil showed me some of them, and I was like, Yeah, it looks like a photo bash, but with worse parts that you're drawing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I've pulled up there's a donkey Spider-Man we're looking at.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
go ahead.
So here, this is the really mean part. This if it was made by somebody, I could tell you all the problems with it, and I could be constructive about it. But you didn't want to actually do any real work, as far as I'm concerned. So the muzzle is not matching the perspective of the face. You fucked that up. The ears look absolutely pasted on like beginner shit, like you didn't even try. As far as you using the tool to make it look realistic, you failed because the ears look like they don't belong there.
Yeah.
But the fucking lower legs look like they kind of do, but they look like they were painted on rather than looking like actual, donkey legs. None of this shit looks right.
So my favorite part about the legs is not only that they're like wildly disproportionate. The calf and below looks much smaller than it would on an anthrodonkey.
Yes.
But the hooves are cloven.
Yeah, and
That-
it just goes
And
to
that's not donkey anatomy.
Donkeys are not artiodactyls. And that is a thing that a human can know and an AI can only guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means, again, you allowed this thing to just guide things for you, and you have gained nothing from it. You have gained nothing. You know, did you have yourself a little bit of fun making this? Okay, fine if you did, but this only gets criticism from me.
Yeah.
Because you took like really gross shortcuts to get there, and you really, really didn't want to fucking try.
And the thing that stands out the most to me as like an artist, including all of the points you just excellently made, both of you, the thing that always stands out the most to me is that the fidelity of the AI parts just stands out so starkly from the actual image. And this is a problem sometimes when you work with, just in photo manipulation in general, if you're working with a very low res or a very high res image, like you often will want it to be more in like the medium A range, because you can play around with that a little bit more and you can make things grainy and stuff. But when you have something that's super clear or super blurry, it's very difficult to make parts for the image that then match the very high or very low resolution.
Right.
And so when I see these pictures, AI only spits them out at like a quote-unquote high resolution. And so when you paste that onto an image like, this one, or say this rat one, you end up in a point where I can look at it and I'm like, that clearly does not go.
Right.
Like these two things are completely separate and have just been melded together because you took AI and you pasted it onto an image. And it just, I don't know. That's the part where sometimes I don't understand how other people don't see it, but I recognize also that, like, when you're an artist, you see these things immediately, and for other people, it might just not. But that just always stands out with those images. Like, if someone, I swear, like 99 times out of 100, if someone shows me a picture and they're like, is it an AI generation or a manip, I will be able to tell you solely because of the fidelity not matching the rest of the image.
Yeah, it's and that's another thing. Like, the AI ones almost always look smoother too.
Yes.
Like, photographs will always have some roughness, not only grain, but like there are weird edges, and there's hard lighting, and there's all of this stuff in life that's very hard to replicate. And because the AI is only guessing, everything will kind of be it will look smooth in ways that things never do in real life.
Exactly.
Like hard light edges, soft and lost edges, which is the kind of thing that you learn in realism when you're learning to paint, which you're not learning doing this.
Yep.
And this rat one that we're poring over right now, it's funny to me that it's got this face that kind of looks a little compelling in terms of how it turned out. We're like, oh, look at that! It's got the nose and the texture and stuff like that, and it looks a little shiny and wet. And then you see those ears, and those ears, they don't fucking work. There's nothing going on with those ears. They don't exist. And that tail is incredibly offensive to me.
Well, it's very out of place.
Because it's out of place. That is clearly pasted onto the image, but you're trying to trick me by putting on this reasonably okay looking muzzle that's supposed to be forming. Like, come the fuck on. Hey, listen, if you want something constructive out of this, instead of me just being mean to you, go out of your way and just make some shit that looks as good as you can get it until it keeps getting better. Actually do the fucking thing. Please. Please, this is not the creative endeavor you think it is. Yeah. And if it sounds like I'm just being some sort of hoity-toity motherfucker to you, let me explain one more thing to you. This shit is supposed to be hard, and it's supposed to take a lot of time to actually figure out. Do not insult my or anybody else's intelligence, okay? Yeah. Also, and one more thing. Do not underestimate the average viewer's ability to look at things. I know that we've also mentioned that people will say, oh wow, look at this photo manip and it looks so good, but there are more people, the ones who aren't vocal, who would look and say, like, I don't know, that's off. And because they know something is wrong. Lots of people can see when something is wrong. That's why CGI is so fucking hard to do in movies well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So you're actually not getting You're not really gaining the ground you think you are just by abusing this fucking toy.
Yeah. And, I want to throw up also this Blastoise, I think, image.
Oh, yeah.
Because one of the things that strikes me about this one is the face is actually quite compelling. Now, this seems to be like a fully computer generated. I don't think there was like an actual image that was put in initially. But I can see that and be like, okay, there are things about this that I like. And then, like with a lot of AI images, you look a little closer and you're like, wait, the shirt is merging with the body, and also that shirt makes no sense because there's holes over the shoulders, and there's some sort of backpack mechanism, and also what is going on with the pants. The more I look at the pants, the more I am distressed, like the pants in this image.
The belt has buckles on both sides? Or
yes.
Like has buckle clasps? Yeah, and one thing, this image can only look the way it is because they made Detective Pikachu, and we have references for photorealistic Blastoises now.
Yeah, that's a great point.
They could not have done that because they didn't have anything to steal from. One thing that I do want to mention about, like, the rat one before we move on.
Yes.
One thing that makes the tail stick out is that it doesn't have a shadow. And one of the things that I love about photo manipulation is finding the little details, the little atmospheric details like that, and making sure that they match. And that is so rewarding. And sometimes people never notice them, but they might notice if they weren't there. I remember doing it like a Rottweiler transformation where the light is from the side, and so there's a shadow cast on the wall of the face in profile. And so I had to change that. I had to like shrink the dome of the head. I had to add a snout so it matched what was going on. I have one of an orca lying down on the couch, and I had to create shadows for the tail on the ground and on the couch arm. Like, it was, and I want to emphasize, like, it's hard to get to the point where you kind of see those things and you know your tools well enough to realize them. But when you do, it is so fun. And it adds so much realism. That orca one I actually just touched up a bit a couple months ago because I'd never been quite satisfied with it because it didn't look like it had weight. Some of the parts of it looked like they were hovering. And so I tweaked some things a little bit here and there just to make it look like it was settling. And now I'm much more satisfied with it, but they were tiny details. And these are things that only you, listener, as a human artist can notice. You're not guessing. You're being deliberate. You can learn to notice these things and you can learn to do them, and it is rewarding when you do. It's so fun.
Yeah, exactly. And back to the Blastoise thing, because I want to pick apart a couple other things in case people think this looks so fucking good. The eyes are dead and flat. Yes, they are. There's no shimmer. There's no, there's a lot that goes on with eyes. This has none of it.
Yeah.
This ironically blends the realism of Detective Pikachu, R.J. Palmer style stuff with the very plastic look that they typically give Pokemon. So this is what happens, and it looks really, really bad, okay, on that eye. And the other thing that I find terribly egregious is the tail here, too. Why would the face have the implication of scales and reptilian shit, and the tail just looked like it was pasted on, just like the rat one? It's the same fucking shit. It's got a little bit of shadow, but
because Demi.
Also,
shut the fuck up. I don't give a fuck.
Another thing about the tail is that it shows up, but if you are going to, it's about the right length, but if it were emerging, it would be coming out of his right buttock.
Yeah, it's in the wrong spot.
You wouldn't be able to see the tail because it would be behind his leg, but they put it in there.
Yeah.
So it's either in the wrong place or the tail is too long, but either way, it's wrong.
Exactly.
It's got so many things wrong with it, and you would have to go through a lot just to fix it and also make anything better.
Yeah.
I took a bit of time to look and thought, oh wait, it's supposed to be a shell backpack turning you into Blastoise. Ha ha ha. Well, fucking man, fine, fun little idea, except this doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
okay, this looks like PlayStation 2 shit, and I love me some PlayStation 2, but I know those people tried, and this is an insult. I'm sorry. I
you insulted
that.
PlayStation 2.
It should not have called it that.
There's one other one actually I want to pick apart a little bit. Since you mentioned orcas, there's this one that you shared with me about the orca guy in the shower that was just like this one. I couldn't get out of my head because of like how many issues I noticed with it the more that I looked at it. Because again, it's like one of those things where like if you saw it in the thumbnail, you might be like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you open up the full image, and if you just like look for like a short while, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's kind of okay. And then you look more and you're like, what is going on with the tail? That tail makes no sense. And what is that shower contraption supposed to be? Is the water coming from the light? Because there's no water coming out of the actual like shower head. And also like how is it supposed to be working with that body? Also, orcas don't have those like skin patterns. Like what is even happening here?
Yeah,
I just
Also, the
exactly.
dimensions of the bathroom, it looks like there's a divide in the ceiling.
There does look like there's a divide in the ceiling, yeah.
What in the
tiles
world is
make no
going
sense.
on with the towel?
Oh
Yeah.
shit! The tap in the back looks like a gun pointing down.
Yes.
it just
It does.
looks like a fucking Glock pointing down.
And if I can bring up, I shared another orca.
Yes.
This one is on a boat. And not only does the background make no sense, but I think the thing that sticks out to me most is that the AI prompter who put this together wanted there to be ripped clothing. And so this
Yes.
Anthro Orca has a tank top and jeans with rips in it. However, the reference material that this AI stole to use it has only one thing that's between rips in jeans, and it is Caucasian human skin. And so,
Yeah.
like, all the rest of the orca has actually, like, pretty decently textured skin because, you know, they have a bunch of, you know, references of orca skin that they can steal from.
Yeah.
However, it has no concept of orca skin being between rips in clothing because you don't see many orcas swimming around with ripped jeans.
Ripped shirts. Yeah.
Now, for a contrast, I have a TF photo manip I did years ago of a drunk donkey guy turning into a donkey hugging a guy turning into a zebra.
Yes.
And the zebra has a tank top on. And I specifically went in because tank tops, you know, it's a thin material and you can see you can see some detail through it. I went in and created a layer so you could see the stripes faintly through the clothing. Again, like, it's something that I don't know if anyone noticed, but it was so fun to do, and it's something that AI will never do because it doesn't exist in the world.
Yeah.
Like,
you can't, yeah, and you just can't put those little things together. Again, AI doesn't know what anything is.
Yeah.
It doesn't get it. The concept that was just explained of, oh, this is a shirt, you know, this kind of shirt has thin fabric, so reasonably speaking, it doesn't think about that, it doesn't understand that. It will copy a thing as close as it understands the words, which it also doesn't understand any of the words you're doing, or typing in, or misspelling. I'd love to know what it would do with misspelled prompts, by the way. That would be a fun experiment. Just one letter off on each of them. How much do they fucking actually accommodate for them? But it's really fucking it's really annoying. The orca on the boat one is really annoying because if you're satisfied with the image generated, you also don't understand what's going on. The clothes are so loose. If they're tearing because you're growing, why are they baggy at all?
Yeah. It makes no sense.
Yep.
They shouldn't be baggy. They should be taut and stretched and like plastered to the skin, you know, and still not look like it's merging, okay?
Yeah, this
to
is
the
true.
fucking skin. That's why the clothing is ripping. But, you know, hey, the AI isn't gonna understand that unless I guess a bunch of people on Instagram are gonna start like tearing their shirts more and posting photos of it. I don't know what the fuck I don't know what
That would be a
people are
hilarious
expecting.
trend, actually.
I'm sure it'll start at some point. I'm just astonished.
Yeah.
This stuff does not work the way you think it does. And if you think that it's going to work like it's supposed to someday, yeah, you know what? Maybe it will. But all the other problems that we mentioned, especially me very loudly screaming it at you fucking people, just it's not going to go away. It's going to be the same fucking shit.
Yeah.
All right? Even if it could perfectly mimic it, in the end, all you have is just a toy that you are playing with. Do not confuse that for art. Do not confuse yourself for an artist. Don't be so fucking arrogant.
I want to kind of, as much as I love picking apart AI pictures.
Oh man, we should make that a special.
I know,
Does anybody want us to just pick on AI art for an hour and a half?
We
We'll
totally
do it.
could. But I want to kind of bring this
Sorry,
back to...
product. My mistake, slip of the tongue.
You're good. I kind of want to bring this back a little bit to what does this mean for like TF fans in general, because, you know, we've spent a lot of time here talking about, you know, the toll that it has on artists and what's wrong with a lot of the AI products outside of the ethical stuff. But I think a lot of people probably listening are like, okay, so what are like some of the takeaways, I guess. And I saw this. There was a video essay by another friend of the pod, Corvolf, that I thought was kind of interesting. That talked a little bit about AI art, and I'm not going to like do a good job of summarizing it, so I'm not going to summarize it. But one of the things that struck me from the essay about like how is AI going to affect like furry commissions, the takeaway that he kind of had in the video to some degree was that AI is probably going to end up taking over to some degree. So we need to create ways so that we don't have to rely off of commissions. And like, I think that's a very nice takeaway, but I think one of the things that it missed is the impact that AI has on our minds. And like, yeah, you can say that, you can take the time to reconceptualize your relationship with your artwork, but that takes a long time. And when it comes to what it means for TF fans in general, I think one of the things that I think about is that when you have AI being pushed as a way for people to get content, it demoralizes artists. It makes them not want to make art anymore or go through the whole like relearning thing. And one of the takeaways that I hope people have from us talking about this is not just like, calling out AI art. Yes, that's all true. But I think it would be really nice if TF fans put a little bit more effort into appreciating the artists who are still doing stuff despite all of these external pressures, and like leaving comments or all that stuff, good comments. I feel like that goes such a long way and helps a lot of artists, especially when they're feeling disillusioned or disconnected from the community. And that's easier said than done, but when you have these kind of tools that are being used by corporations to break down artists, break down actors and writers and all of these other things we're seeing in terms of strikes, which yes, everyone go on strike. I would hope that us as like a public, when we think about these things, we try to think about ways in which we can continue to directly support artists and writers and all of those good things, because what will actually, in my opinion, make things manageable, even if AI does end up taking over, is having that unique connection between artists who are actually making art and the communities that are consuming it, having that connection maintained and fostered in a healthy way. I feel like that goes such a long way towards, in particular, again, from an artist perspective, us healing our own connections to our art. And I feel like we don't necessarily do that as much as we'd like to think we do. It definitely happens. Please don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. But I feel like so much more work could still be done. And that's only something that we as a community can embark upon. And I think it is something that actually could be feasible, which is why I mentioned that. I love other ideas of us finding other ways to survive, not necessarily off of free commissions. And I encourage the people who want to fight for that to do that, and I would help fight for that too. But I think in the short term, and like something that's actually tangible and something we can do now, I feel like we as a community can do a better job of appreciating artists and helping them maintain a healthy connection to their community and their art. And that also includes not commissioning AI art.
Yeah.
So,
and
product.
Also, don't. That's a fucking scam.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scam, but
It's a scam. Sorry,
broadly
go Toledo.
speaking,
Go Toledo.
Yeah, I think it can also be an opportunity for reflection about what if you are a fan of this sort of art, what it means for you. Like, what role does it play in your life? What sort of value do you put on it? Like, if you are interested in getting something custom, are you willing to put the money? It's always been a luxury good. Are you willing to put the money to have a human work with you on what you want to see come into the world? Like, consider that. Like, will you be satisfied with like stuff that looks good in the instant but falls apart in the long run? Or will you try to build something more robust? Another thing that can be really that could help with the material side, as well as like helping artists recontextualize their art, is find artists who are doing personal things that you are interested in. and
That's a
see
good
if
point.
there's a way that you can support them in doing their personal work. Like, that is made out of kind of love and interest as opposed to kind of necessarily the creator-client relationship. That could help people. And it might be different. Like, you might want to commission an artist whose personal work you don't care for. So there might be some reconfiguring in how you allocate your funds. But, like, that can help an artist whose work you care about continue to do that work. And do it in a way that is life-giving to you, life-giving to them, and life-giving to a community at large. Especially if it is, like, work that is done out of love is often unique. It's not something that can be pushed out, like, bottom of the barrel image masher or, like, ChatGPT generated. Like,
Yeah.
if you want a story, you need a human. If you want something personalized, you need a human. It's, yeah, join a community, be a part of it, I guess.
Yeah, I'll upsell people for those that don't care about the actual emotions that both of you are putting out there. This thing will never get why you like something and be able to have fun with it and embellish it in a way that you will like, because people can get to know people. So, customers can go to a place run by people and they'll be like, oh, I know you like this thing. So then sometimes do something nice for you, add a little extra, assuming that you have a good relationship that you fostered with them. And an AI system is not going to do that. It is not. The moment it does, we'll have to consider rights for them. Okay?
Yeah.
And we are nowhere near there.
Yes.
If you want something that nice, you are not getting it from these image generations. Ever. At least under these circumstances. And I will fucking tell you right now, what's being pushed is something that isn't going to be developed to any logical like useful means. This is all they want, this is all they care about, and this is all we'll ever get. As I'm shocked that it's gotten as good as it did, and that probably has to do with the fact that there's enough money being poured into it that they just want to sustain the fact that it'll keep laundering work and laundering images to make what it does. But it ain't gonna give you that shit.
Yeah.
It is a flimsy product. It is a nice toy. It's like a kaleidoscope, okay? That's what it is, and you're not going to get anything that fucking lasts. Like Toledo said, you want something robust? Go to a human, If you actually like shit that people make, oh my god, I miss that artist so much. Do like Zilda says, and just actually, show some fucking support. Throw a tip in the tip jar. One time even is kind of like, that's nice. It's very little things. And in the meantime, yes, if we have the right kind of people they're surrounded with, or maybe we get, wind from the right people, we will have a better relationship with our art, and we won't have to rely on people who are shitty to press the like button, because sometimes some of us want that, whether we want it or whether we know it or not, or whether we care to admit it. But until that time, help the process out a little bit. And do not be sold by the shit. This is not even going to help you in your art or your expression when you're letting something else do it for you. Photo bashing takes more work because at least you get to choose the images and put them together and decide spur of the moment, I will leave this here. Ooh, look at how this turned out. Which is, it's not even close.
Yeah.
None of this is close at all. I'm gonna say it again really loudly because it needs to be said. If you are buying commissions from people plugging prompts into a fucking generator, you are being scammed. Do not pay these people. Do not pay these people ever. I have to sit at the computer and scrutinize and go over each image and think which one really appeals to the customer, which means taking into account exactly what they like and me pouring over fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. If I want to psychologically profile somebody, I can do that anytime I fucking want. But you know what I can do? I can make it my goddamn self.
Yeah.
Do not fucking pay these people ever.
And I want to add something as well, because you touched on something that I find really interesting and also potentially a little bit concerning. When it comes to these AI programs, I mean, first of all, the people who are selling them to you are basically charlatans and snake oil salesmen, because they don't even know how it works. In fact, nobody can actually tell you right now how these AI models work. Like, yeah, broadly speaking, we know that they're modeled after like the human brain, so they're neural networks and they have neurons and they do things, but like a lot of the leading AI scientists cannot tell you exactly how these things are working. And I'm not saying this to be like, oh yeah, this is how we get Skynet, because it's not. These things are not intelligent in any way. But I guess what I mean to say is, like, yes, it has unexpectedly gotten better, but it's highly likely that it's going to hit some sort of test case or something that makes it plateau, kind of like what we're seeing right now. It has been plateaued, actually, for quite a while at this point. And, again, nobody can tell you why that is. And I just... if someone cannot even tell you how the thing that they're using to generate something works, it's nothing more than just a random black box that's spitting things out. And that is not something that I would ever want to entrust the future of anything to, least of all art or photo manipulation. So,
yeah, it's not art. That's why it's not art.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And will not be.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can create images.
Yep. Any of us can tell you what something is, what it means, why we did it, even if it didn't have a lot of thought behind it. It just happened. We can explain those things, but it's not even that. It's not even that with this stuff. Yeah. Do not be fooled, and again, because I'm sure people who hear my tone think that I'm attacking you. It's okay if pretty thing like for a moment. If you like pretty thing, I like pretty things sometimes. Yeah. Mecha shiny glowing robot chick, very appealing. Oh, AI, boo. It's fine. You'll survive. I will not morally impugn you, and I don't think anybody else should morally impugn you either. But holy fucking shit, if you just keep buying into it and you keep spewing to people, oh my god, it's just a you problem. Sure. You know what else has problems? Parking lots. Parking lots need a lot of maintenance, and just they take up so much land, so you got to take care of them. And we can meet at a parking lot and have a discussion about AI art if you like.
Oh my god.
AI art, because that's what you understand it to be, but it's a fucking generation. It is an image generation. Come on. Fucking get a clue. Just one last thing,
of course,
so I can get this last bit out. Just if you call yourself an artist and you only use this little toy, fuck you, okay? Fuck you, and learn to not do that. So I don't have to say fuck you to you anymore, okay? Otherwise, we can discuss parking lots and how those go down. Please continue.
Another thing that I just want to say is, like, do your own art. Like, art is fulfilling. Like, you will go through periods where you're down on it, and you'll go through periods where you're up on it, but at least for me, the periods where I'm up on it more than balance out. And, like, I don't know, for me it's fun to create something. The reason I started drawing in the first place was to bring something into the world that wasn't there before. I wanted friendly bipedal dragons, and I wasn't finding them online. Find that thing that you want to see in the world, and do your best. You will find people who will appreciate it for its offering. Like, it doesn't have to be good. You don't even have to think that it's good, but you can have fun with it still. Like, art is great.
Yes. Yeah. Actually understand that. The reason we do this and the reason people care about it so much is because it does feel good to make. If you think of the anguish and the pain that artists are apparently supposed to go through, that's not really why we do it. It's just the thing that we exclaim because it gets in the way of doing what we enjoy. So, the key word joy, we do find joy in this. And you will not find it throwing prompts at a neural network that people don't understand, and that is incredibly fucking basic, to say the least.
Yeah.
And you won't be able.
That's it.
And you won't be able to share that joy with a person.
Yes.
You can't. You cannot. And I don't give a fuck if you're going to rationalize, oh, but I showed it to me, and both of us were like, wow, shut the fuck up, man.
It's not the same.
To
touch on, I guess, at least in terms of a closing thought from me on a positive note, one thing that I do think about in the context of all this is that, when you get to work with someone and you get to see their reaction. The most recent piece I did was a kangaroo transformation, and one of the things that, first of all, I was actually very into the idea and the pose is great and blah blah blah, but the thing that really made it nice at the end of the day was getting to see how much the commissioner liked it.
Yes.
And I said at the beginning, I haven't been able to do any personal art for a long time, and that hasn't necessarily changed, but at least in terms of meeting my own creative juices where they are right now, at least getting to see that positive impact from someone who's asked for something specific is meaningful. And, again, you can't get that with AI generation. So
Right.
there's something to be said for making really big kangaroo feet and someone else going, oh, I love that. That's meaningful. That has meaning to
Yeah.
me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
If anything, I'll leave a bit more positive shit, and this is actually kind of cynical too, so it's funny in that way.
Positive cynicism?
Yeah, because honestly, I really think people are just gonna get fucking tired of it, and they're
I
gonna
hope
go
so.
loop back around to this idea of remember when art was made by people? I really enjoy that novelty.
I hope so.
When people actually put their hand to something, I think to myself, wow, a person made that. Even though I'm so used to the very nice images that get made by neural networking, I really have come to rediscover the value in human-made art, because that's how some of these fucking simpletons will be.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, it'll be like, oh, the AI art craze. Yeah, I remember that. That's very old. Anybody can do that. And that's how it's going to be, because people who just want to buy shit and people who just want to, fucking fillet themselves, they're going to they're going to be that way.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, suddenly I think all of us would become a major commodity. Oh my god, you're still one of those human artists? You actually kept drawing through the AI apocalypse? Oh my god. I think I want to buy something from you.
Well,
And hopefully they'll say something like money is no object or
Yeah.
some shit.
the one thing I try to hold on to is the fact that people are still painting, physically painting pictures to this day.
Yeah.
And that has gone through, photography and digital art and all these other things that have, supposedly been its death knell and displacing it. And it is still going. So, if there's hope for paint on canvas, I'm sure there must be at least a little hope for us digital artists.
There's plenty of hope.
100%.
There's plenty of hope. Yeah. And also, if you're comparing yourself to these generations and thinking, how can I possibly compete with that level of quality or whatever, right? Just remember, you're busy making unhealthy comparisons to yourself with other people's work. This is old news. Do not worry about what the fucking AI generations are doing that you are simply not capable of, because we already feel that way about other artists, and then, oh well, we prove ourselves wrong. All of us do it. We do it regularly, even if we don't like to admit it. So, if you're feeling crestfallen by that, then that's the comfort that I can give you. People are already doing the thing that you admire. This shit is nothing. This is nothing. It's a flash in the pan. So, Toledo, do you have any thoughts to pile on to all this shit, or do you feel like you've said your piece in that?
I think I've said my piece.
Okay.
I find what you love that only you can bring into the world. Don't analyze it too much. Don't work yourself up over it, and put it out there. Someone will like
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I support that.
Excellent. Simple. I like simplicity too.
Yeah.
just like typing words into a prompt. It's pretty simple process.
We have 2 questions from the audience, which are both interesting in their own way. The first question is from Viger Fire, and they ask, what number would you TF into? Do you have a number you would TF into? I don't know, Libra. Do you have a number you would TF into?
Well, for you, it's not 100, right?
No, it's not 100.
Okay, so I'm between 13 and 33.
13 and 33?
Yeah.
Okay, one of those 2?
13 is a number I like to throw in the face of superstitious people, and 33 is just something that reminds me of eternal darkness.
Oh,
Eternal darkness. You wake up at 3:33, and the number 3 is very prominent because of the 3 eldritch gods that are making all the shit happen in the game. And I think about that, so I'm like, number 3. 3 is also a prominent number in like other like faiths and shit like that. 3 is a big number, so
It's
13
a prime
or
number.
33.
It's a prime number too.
Yeah.
What do you think, Toledo?
If we're going double digits, probably just 47. They're aesthetically pleasing shapes.
Yeah.
And there's the Star Trek reference. If you like, they deliberately put 47 all over the place.
That's great.
And I have to note that I'm imagining this being like those like alphabet videos that showed up on Twitter like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where it was just like a normal alphabet, and then there started to be like this crazy like epic story.
Yeah, F was the villain.
Yeah. I'm imagining this, but for numbers.
I think that's great.
Yeah. I support this idea. Please make anthropomorphic numerals.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting like really, really abstract, but if you want to anthropomorphize
I think that's
numbers,
good. I'm going to think about it that way.
That's a completely different thing. I went like completely abstract.
But I dig that. I would pick 9. Just 9. Don't need double digits. Just 9. 9 is my favorite number. It is the number of my birthday month, September, Snaptember, as it were.
Ooh.
So it's already great for that concept. I like its aesthetic too. It's like one, if you draw it the way it should be, it's one simple line that curves in on itself, and there's something very appealing in that to me. And it is a product of 3 and 3. And 3 is a very cool number, and it has a lot of allegories to different things. So what's better than 3 twice, or 9? So there you go.
Here, I will amuse you a little further. Whenever I did play Pokemon, box number 9 was always where I put the Pokemon that I wanted to like use or like train.
Very nice.
So box 9 was the special box.
Good.
Also,
I'm very glad to hear that.
Also, I always knew you were a square, Zill.
Yes, this is true. And the other question I have here is from Mello, and Mello asks, are there any pieces of TF media that are educational that you find interesting? Maybe not necessarily talking about animals, or but potentially talking about like facts about animals and things like that. I have an answer, so I can go first.
Yeah, go
This
ahead.
is a very easy answer for me because it was the thing that got me into transformation. So the Magic School Bus is very much educational and transformation. I mean, what more do you want than learning about dinosaurs and also seeing people turn into dinosaurs, or learning about the animal kingdom and seeing people turn into animals? I mean, this is my bread and butter, y'all. So easy question for me.
I mean, I'm not thinking of anything else that's educational in terms of, or they've done it so much that I just don't think about it. It's like, imagine yourself this, imagine you were here, and blah blah blah, and so you're putting yourself in the shoes of whatever, and also there's a lot of educational content that will try to put you in the headspace of a situation somehow with descriptive language if they're not doing it literally with characters. So I mean, I can't give a satisfying answer, because to me that's what a lot of educational content kind of does one way or another. But so like Magic School Bus is an easy one that I can agree with, that I also like, but But, like, I don't know, man. Give the same answer twice. I got nothing else to contribute to that one.
That's fair. How about you, Toledo?
I can't think of like a media property that fits the bill, but the process of creating transformation art requires a lot of self-education. Part of what I've always loved about transformations is like learning comparative anatomy. Like you have to know like where joints fit together, like what muscles do, how these things would work. And I remember one time after having taken like a biology class, I was like, oh my goodness, if you grew in becoming a dragon, would you have trouble with like blood pressure as like your body volume expanded in size? How about like the exchange of oxygen over the alveoli in your lungs as you grow and like the pressure differential changes? Like, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, you can do it and learn a lot to make your transformations exactly how you want them to be. Like, and it is so fun to learn about that stuff.
It is really great. It's so great.
Yeah, I forget like what recently I was telling Zil. What animal was it? It was something like, did you know that these things have this? And you're just like, no. And it's like, yeah, animals are fucking weird. Even the common ones. Humans are weird. Every fucking animal is really, really fucking weird the more you learn about them.
Oh, a friend of mine, Virgacht, recently did a like feline paw transformation.
Oh yeah.
And one thing that I've never done in my art, kind of because I find it uncanny, is that feline claws are actually the final bone. Like like unlike canine claws, they are not like the fingernail. They are the bone
digit
itself. And so Virgacht did the paw pad growing on the second knuckle of the joint, and the fingertip was pulling back, retracting into that.
Oh, that's so cool. I dig that. I'm gonna have to go look for that now.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I like that.
Aesthetically, it didn't do it for me, but again, it's one of those things where like a common animal, you might have one in your house, has this really weird thing going on.
Yeah. Also, I want to shout out two pieces of educational media that have TF that came to mind. The first is Clue Finders. I don't know if either of y'all are familiar with that. Educational CD-ROM series from the 90s. A bunch of TF in that. Second one, this was all after our time, but I've seen it come up a lot. The Wildcrats, which is actually a continuation of Zaboomafoo, which you might actually remember. Do you know Zaboomafoo?
No, I don't.
Okay. Zaboomafoo,
I do.
These two guys, they're the Krat brothers. Yeah, Toledo knows. They did like a lot of educational stuff. The mascot was a lemur, an actual lemur named Zaboomafoo. And they've continued doing stuff now as like an animated show. And so part of the animated show stuff is they actually have these suits that will like transform them into the shape of the animals to better understand the animals themselves. It's really interesting K-suits. And very TFy. So, what?
They're K-suits.
Yeah, they're like K-suits basically. Yeah.
Fun shit.
Yeah. So, want to shout them out because I know a lot of people who have mentioned them and being like, oh, I really like that show. It got me into TF. And I'm like, I feel like I'm going to turn into dust now. So,
okay, though.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that was all the questions. I don't know if you had any questions for us, Toledo.
So we talked about some of the things that AI can kind of manage to do that's hard for us, given the tools at our disposal. What's something that is difficult for you, given the media you work in, that you wish was easier?
Oh. Okay, I've got an answer. One of the things that I struggle with a lot is if I have to take an image and put it, like, separate the subject from the background and put it on a new background. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. It's like one of the worst things for me to do. And this is why I can't do photo bashing, because that's like the simplest version of a photo bash. And I'm just like, oh God, I can't do it. So it would be that. I would want that to be easier.
I am in a headspace right now where it feels like art is overall very difficult, and so I mean, I'd like to be able to say make everything easier. I think what I really want more than anything is to be able to really get a grip on creating spaces and environments in a consistent way, but that also, if you don't mind me kind of like, I don't know, the idea of making something easier for art because I'm in this headspace just makes me think that it's just a challenge in varying degrees to do it, so it kind of doesn't matter if it's hard or not. You'll endeavor to do it, and improvement will happen as long as you continue to endeavor. I say this out loud to myself because I need to hear it.
That's fair.
But
Yeah.
I mean, like the unsatisfying answer. The unsatisfying answers are: I wish everything was easier, and also it really actually doesn't matter that it's hard. But yeah, I suppose the simple answer is I want to make environments more easily because as much as I'm okay with just having a subject, sometimes I want to put them places, and I kind of angst over not being able to just not have the thought to just like include that most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
I'm stuck here between two photomanipulators. I'm just here and I can't relate at all. It's so hard.
We're
I'm
aliens.
so alone. I'm so alone.
You're so alone in the night.
I am so alone in the night. Goodbye.
Two feline photographers. To boot.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Toledo, for coming on. If people are looking for you online in the ever-changing landscape of online, where can they find you?
So, given that things are going crazy, I
Yes.
do have a link tree. So
Oh,
it's,
perfect.
Sweet.
Linktree/Toledo spelled TOLEDAUX. So there you'll find Blue Sky Art Feed, For Affinity, Twitter, etc. Just
Tolediox.
yes, yeah.
That's the first time I've heard someone pronounce it that way.
I know it's Toledo. I know, but this goes back to an old thing where Mo, as in Moses Lack, the Simpsons character, has his bar, and there's just a version of his bar that's shown for just a second, where it's supposed to be like hoity-toity. It's like MEAUX.
Amazing.
So I mused over the idea of calling it Meox Bar.
Wonderful.
But yeah,
I love it.
That's
so
great.
that you know.
Yeah. And now we know.
Yeah, and any other links or socials that you'd like to shout out?
That one has basically everything, I think.
Okay.
And given that I'm switching over to Blue Sky more, and
Yeah, me too.
Because Twitter, which is what it's called, is an art laundering site now.
Yeah, it is
It's
an
an
art
image
laundering
and art laundering site.
Yeah.
I will stop posting there.
Yeah.
I have
It's
stopped
such a
posting
mess.
there,
Yeah,
actually.
it's not helpful for anyone's mental health at this point. So
Yep. Fuck you, Elon.
yeah.
We can discuss parking lots together.
yes.
Well,
Uh-huh.
well, thank you so much again, Toledo, for coming
Of
on,
course.
and thank you everyone for listening. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this as much as we did recording it. I feel like it was a really positive experience, honestly, and I feel better having done this episode. So
Hooray.
I appreciate both of you contributing to it, and I hope listeners come away with that same impression as well.
Yeah.
And
Like, share, subscribe, actually, too. Please
Yes,
do that.
please do that.
In terms of algorithms and neural networks and all that shit, you have
Yeah.
to fucking do that.
the internet is collapsing. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Yay.
Do I need to do it in a YouTuber voice?
Yes, you should do it in a YouTube.
Hey everybody, like, share, and subscribe. If you want to subscribe to more TF Tuesday, we do videos every single week. Zill, my friendly co-host, we're always just having a great time, so smash it, smash it, smash it so nobody else can fucking use it. Do it!
Beautiful. Mr. Beast could never.
Does he know anything about parking
I
lots?
don't know. He knows about cars, though.
He knows about cars.
He knows about cars.
But he also apparently, oh man, The burger thing.
Oh, oh, God. Well, with that, I hope that you all have a wonderful week, that you get some good rest, stay hydrated. It's still a little hot out there in some areas of the world, and that you all keep an open mind and stay TFE, and we'll see you back again next week.
You're not alone in this abyssal darkness.
Ciao, ciao, folks.
See you later, everybody.